There you go, a little bit of Supergrass. Everyone loves Supergrass. Let's get all the latest headlines now from BBC Radio 2. Andrew is on the news.
This is Radio 2
on BBC Sounds
and on your smart speaker.
Play BBC Radio 2.
BBC News at 11 o'clock. This is Andrew Peach. The head of the train drivers union ASLEF has warned that zero progress has been made towards agreeing a new pay deal with rail companies as members hold another day of strike action. But Mick Whelan says he's still confident there will be a resolution. Services run by 15 rail companies are affected by today's walkout. These rail passengers in the Welsh town of Flint are frustrated by the continuing dispute.
I understand why it's happening and I do think it's important for them to strike, but I think in situations just like this it can be quite frustrating for passengers, especially when the rail prices are constantly going up.
Just one more thing, isn't it? We tried to go to the Christmas markets in Manchester last year and we tried, and those strikes, and then we tried to make up for it a few days later, strikes again.
The former Russian President Dmitry Medvedev has warned that British officials are legitimate military targets because of the UK's support for Ukraine. Mr Medvedev, who's a key ally of Vladimir Putin and now sits on his Security Council, accused Britain of waging an undeclared war against Russia. Our correspondent in Kiev, James Landale, says this is another step up in the Kremlin's rhetoric.
He said any British official supporting that war effort could be considered a legitimate military target. Now, Mr Medvedev, does say some quite wild things at times, but even so, that is extraordinarily striking for such a senior figure to say that British officials are now legitimate military targets.
The mayor of the South Korean capital Seoul has apologised for the confusion caused by an alert issued to millions of residents, sparked by a failed North Korean satellite launch. Pyongyang says a malfunction meant its rocket crashed into the sea. One of the so-called godfathers of artificial intelligence has said if he'd realised the pace at which the technology would evolve, he would have prioritised safety over usefulness. Professor Yoshua Bengio has called for computer scientists working in the field to undergo ethical training. Professor Sir Nigel Shadbolt is leading researcher of AI. He says more time should be taken to think about the benefits and the risks.
Let us understand that AI will be a force for good as it's used in health, drug discovery. But the challenges, the misapplication, what we should do is absolutely have many people involved in the conversation. We should have clear ethical guidelines and precepts and training for the people who are building this.
A new survey says the presence of pine martens in Northern Ireland has almost doubled in the past 5 years. The organisation Ulster Wildlife says the species is undergoing a phenomenal resurgence. An official in India who made headlines last week after ordering for an entire reservoir to be drained without permission to recover his phone has been fined by the government. Rajesh Vishwas claimed the device needed to be retrieved as it had sensitive data stored on it. He's been told to pay the equivalent of around £500. BBC News, it's 3 minutes past 11.
Thank you, Andrew.
Vernon Kay on BBC Radio 2.